So somewhere along the way, Raid started releasing legendary champions throughout collabs that didn't just enter the meta, they started defining it. Odin changed how arena fights worked. Queen of Hearts punished entire team archetypes. Bayek literally made players rebuild their nukers, and even now champions like Fatalis are stealing wins purely because people still don't understand what they do. NANI? So today I want to look at how collab champions became one of the most meta-defining releases in Raid history. The first collaboration in Raid Shadow Legends was with the popular content creator and streamer Ninja in July 2021. This was the game's debut crossover event, offering players a free legendary champion based on the streamer. And still to this day, he's a very strong champion for PvE. Following the Ninja event, we had one with Ronda Rousey. And after that, the first bigger collab was the Monster Hunter collab in January 2024. And that was the first time that we saw what is now a very common structure of Raid Shadow Legends collabs. A free daily login champion, a fusion, a guaranteed champion from Deck of Fates, and then another champion that is available through summoning events, maybe even winning a Champ Chase tournament. Now in terms of PvP, Fatalis was the strongest out of this Monster Hunter collab, and I think he's underrated because people don't really know how to play against him. This is pretty much a knowledge check champion. What most people don't know is that he places a shield buff on himself equal to 25% of his max HP for 2 turns at the end of his turn. And this champion can also not receive critical hits while he is under shield buff, okay? So that means he has a strong survivability passive and he can also hit very hard. He has a lot of death ignore on his skills, but other than that, he's not bringing more to the meta. So in general, I would say he's one of the weaker ones out of all the collabs. Fatalis isn't broken, he is the one champion that farms people that don't read the kits. Now, the Asgard Divide event was a massive time-limited event in Raid Shadow Legends inspired by Norse mythology. The event ran from August to October and introduced 4 legendary barbarian champions, Loki, Thor, Freya, and Odin, a special event dungeon, and new gear sets like Pinpoint. And while the time-limited event has concluded, you can still acquire these Asgardian champions and their souls through regular summoning pools and events. And now Odin introduced absurd utility in one kit and kind of changed arena pacing. So for one, he's a Void legendary champion, a support type, and he has an insane Void ally speed aura in arena battles, 40%. This is probably the biggest speed aura that we have in the game. Obviously limited to Void champions, but still a very, very strong aura. As most of the legendary champions that are viable in PvP have Void affinity. But the strongest thing about Odin is his passive. Every 9 turns he places a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn and also applies a buff spread effect, taking all buffs from this champion and placing them on all allies, which provides insane survivability for your whole team. So he has the block damage, the buff spread, he can kill someone with this A3. This hits really hard. It ignores 100% of the target's defense. And then he can also strip buffs, has a chance to stun, decrease defense on the same skill. And yeah, absolutely hard to deal with in the current Mercurial meta. If you have a 9-piece Mercurial set on him, he's probably one of the best support champions out there right now. He was already strong when he first got released, but then with the release of relics, he became even stronger, and especially this one right here, the Bane of Sintranos. Whenever an enemy receives a buff, the wearer has a percentage chance of getting the same buff for 2 turns, okay? So that means every time you buff and you have an Odin on the opponent team with this relic, he has a chance to copy that buff and then spread it with his passive. Absolutely insane relic on Odin. So he kind of forced players to rethink buff control and survivability, and when he got into the game, Arena stopped just being speed nuking, but he wasn't always that dominant as he is right now. As I already mentioned, the Mercurial set and relics brought him back later. Now at the start of 2025, the Alice's Adventure global event transformed classic Alice in Wonderland figures into dark fantasy warriors fighting across Teleria. Aside from Alice, the character lineup included the Mad Hatter, Cheshire Cat, Knave of Hearts, and the Queen of Hearts. So with the new Alice collab, again, another Void Legendary that is very, very strong. Actually, one of the hardest bosses in the event dungeons, if you ask me. I think I struggled the most with the Queen of Hearts, if I remember correctly. But yeah, what she actually brings to the table is another insane passive. And you can kind of see a trend here. All the good champions always have an insane passive alongside other great skills, right? But for every 10 buffs the enemy team receives, grants this champion an extra turn, okay? So basically, you got punished for overbuffing with like Siphi and all the other speed boosters, and she would cut in, okay? And then she would go with a, buff removal or an ally attack, which is very strong. Also, she has a decreased defense on the A1, which places, so no chance whatsoever. It's always a 100% chance, right? And also fills the turn meters of all allies by 5%. Kinda insane if you ask me. And in today's meta, she's probably the best ally attacker we have in the entire game, especially with a deflection set, okay? Because for one, you have the ally attack right here, but then you also have very interesting debuffs here, Death Brand, True Fear, and also a buff removal. So in the deflection set, you remove one total guard stack with this skill already. And if you use the ally attack, you will use the A1 as well, right? So if you place that decreased defense, which you most likely will, you remove another total guard stack, and then she also hits. So that's 3 total guard stacks. And that's why people put the Chrono Cube on her, so she takes 2 turns, okay? They want her to be very fast with enough accuracy, and then, the Chrono Cube relic, which grants her an extra turn. And it is absolutely insane how quick she gets rid of total guard stacks. And yeah, she's definitely up there in the current meta. But the most notable collab ran in late 2025, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And this is the one collab that people were really happy about. At first, they were kind of skeptical that we got the Ninja Turtles in Raid Shadow Legends, as they are kind of a cartoon, but at the same time they were really strong, and there was a strong synergy with Leonardo being the Turtle Unity champion, so to speak. But then we also had a very weak Void Legendary champion besides Leonardo, the villain of the whole collab, so to say, Shredder, okay? And Shredder never truly landed, to be honest. Shredder had his moments. Some people say he's better than people think he is. But I don't really know. I'm very skeptical about that. And I don't really see him anywhere. Even, the top end players don't really use him anywhere. They rather prefer all the other Void Legendaries like Queen of Hearts, Odin, and Bayek, which we're going to get to in a second. Like I said, some people like him in PvP, but he never really became meta-defining or had a great impact on the meta. But then later on in 2025, we had a very, very important collab, and we had Predator, the Predator Badlands collab. And Predator was part of a champion pass, and probably the best 40 bucks that I ever invested into this game. He has been one of my most picked champions in Live Arena throughout the last couple months since he got released. At first, people were very skeptical, me included, because a lot of CCs were testing him and said he's bad, but he ended up being one of the most picked Live Arena champions, Live Arena nukers, even at the top end, and rightfully so. And the reason for it is the evasion on his passive, right? It gives him so much survivability that he can sometimes carry a whole fight on his own. And he can block revive, he deals a lot of damage, a double hitter, and yeah, attacking out of his turn, that's also what makes him meta, if you can stack up the evasion. And yeah, very, very strong champion, and I think he will be strong for a very, very long time. Now, the last collab that we had ran from January 2026 until April 2026. Just recently it ended, and it was the Assassin's Creed collab. The time-limited crossover event featured Assassin Brotherhood heroes, most notably Ezio, Edward Kenway, bringing in lore and events into the game. But for Raid, the most iconic champion out of this Assassin's Creed collab was Bayek. He didn't just enter the PvP meta, he changed it completely. He changed stat building, players started stacking accuracy differently on their nukers, building around anti-crit mechanics. All of a sudden we saw Predators and Geralts with Death Dealer or 700 accuracy, and his passive became one of the most discussed PvP mechanics. Bayek wasn't just strong, he literally forced anybody to rebuild their whole accounts. And this is where Bayek or Predator became way more controversial than Odin or Queen of Hearts, because Odin is strong, Queen of Hearts is also strong, but players knew that they can still pull them even after the collabs ended. But for Bayek and Predator and all the other IP collabs, things were a little bit different. They were time limited, which meant that the most meta warping champions Raid ever released suddenly became unobtainable for newer players. And that changes how people react to balance. Because losing to Odin feels bad, or to Queen of Hearts, but losing to a champion that you cannot get anymore, that creates a complete different level of frustration. Especially when that champion changes how people build their champions, how they draft their champions, more accuracy, Death Dealer on champions that you wouldn't expect normally. At that point, it's not just a collab anymore, it's pretty much account advantage. And honestly, this is probably the part that matters the most going forward, because now the big question becomes, is Raid going to keep making those collab champions time limited, or will future collab champions stay in the game permanently like Odin, Queen of Hearts? Because those are two very different systems. If a collab champion is strong but permanently available, players can adapt over time. You might pull them later. You can still plan around them. But if Raid starts making these meta-defining champions only temporary, then suddenly saving shards for collabs becomes one of the most important things in the entire game. Especially for players that want to compete in arena or PvP in general. Because now you're not just pulling for, a collectible champion, a crossover character, you're pulling basically for a champion that can literally reshape the meta for the next year or even longer. That literally changes everything. But yeah guys, that's about it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you feel about time limited champions that are that impactful on the meta? I think it might be a bad thing, even though I have to say I've been benefiting from having Bayek. He's like the one time limited void legendary that I have alongside Predator, I guess, that has been very, very beneficial for me, and I really noticed it inside of the arena. And I think those that don't have those champions, it's really unfair for them. I have to say, it's really unfair for them. I don't really like the idea of time limited champions that much, but I guess it kind of becomes a trend now, and that's why I'm saving all my shards. I'm not pulling for these weird progressives outside of collabs anymore, because it's just not worth it. What can you get? Like, you can pull these champions anytime, right? You can also pull them when you go for these time-limited collab champions. So what's the point of opening shards outside of those collabs? With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. If you like this video, YouTube's gonna think that you like this one as well. Take care and see you in the next one.